In the south of Portugal lies a region that many people will likely recognize for its golden sandy beaches, iconic limestone cliffs, and the endless hours of sunshine that attract millions of travelers each year. For many, it is the ultimate escape to the sea, a place that buzzes with life during the high season. But those who look beyond the horizon of the seaside resorts discover an entirely hidden world. It is March, the tranquility has returned, and nature is on the verge of bursting into bloom. For it is not only the coastline that harbors beautiful places. Those who turn their backs to the ocean will find deeper inland and along the Spanish border the most breathtaking landscapes that most travelers never get to see. In this video, I take you along on my 7-day road trip through one of the most beautiful regions of Portugal, from the well-known hotspots to the most hidden gems. Welcome to the Algarve. I begin this 7-day journey at Faro Airport, which is located not far from my first destination, the coastal town of Quarteira. This town is one of the oldest fishing villages in the region, but over the past 50 years, it has undergone a major transformation into a modern seaside resort. Although the skyline is now dominated by modern high-rise buildings, the authentic streets have never truly disappeared. But the history of this place goes back much further than a few centuries. Not far from the center lies Cerro de Vila. This was once a luxurious estate from the Roman to the Moorish periods in the 11th century, and it was not only a residence, but also an industrial center. The complex was discovered in 1963 by a farmer, after which decades of excavations followed. The most remarkable finds here are the richly decorated mosaic floors, which have been exceptionally well preserved. But the remains of the bathhouses and the salt tanks are also very special. In these salt tanks, the Romans produced a fermented fish sauce made from entrails, herbs, and olive oil, which became an export product and was shipped across the entire Roman Empire. It proves that the fishing industry, for which Quarteira is still known today, has quite literally been part of its DNA for thousands of years. Just a few minutes from the town lies Praia da Falésia, where at this time of year it is wonderfully quiet, with only a handful of beachgoers and, of course, local fishermen trying their luck in silence. What truly makes this beach unique are the impressive cliffs with their vivid colors, ranging from bright white and ochre to deep, fiery red tones that contrast beautifully with the deep blue of the Atlantic Ocean. At the top of the cliffs, you have the best view of this 5-kilometer-long beach, but be careful, as they can be unstable. You are standing at a considerable height, so always keep a safe distance from the edge. For me, this is the perfect place to get some fresh air after this morning's flight and before heading to the next lively destination. I end this first day in Albufeira, a coastal town of contrasts. In the summer, it becomes a place of chaos, filled with young crowds, packed clubs, and neon-lit bars. But in spring, it is mainly a place of calm, not at all comparable to how it will be in just a few months. I take a short walk through the old town, which is connected to the beach by a tunnel. It is a lovely town to stroll through, and the viewpoints, which you can reach by escalator, offer a beautiful view of the coastline, with the town partly built on the cliffs. For me, it is a perfect end to my first day in this beautiful region. The next morning, I stay in Albufeira a bit longer and take a long beach walk from Praia dos Aviros towards Rocha do Peneco near the city center. This rock, standing in the middle of the beach, has over the years become the icon of the town and marks the beginning of the beach on the western side. On this western side, there are also several beautiful viewpoints on top of the cliffs that offer a completely different perspective of the town. From Albufeira, I continue my route along the coast and stop at Ponta do Castelo, where you will once again find a rugged and dramatic coastline. This rock formation lies between Praia do Castelo and Praia da Coelha, two calm bays with small sandy beaches. The formation owes its name to the battlements you would normally see on castles, but that is not the only reason. In the 16th and 17th centuries, these cliffs were actually used as lookout points to spot pirates at an early stage. I take a beautiful cliff walk to the hidden beach of Coelha, which is surrounded by high, golden-colored cliffs. At the end of this small beach, you will find a remarkable cave that is open on both sides. At low tide, you can walk all the way through the cave, but when the tide comes in, the water reaches far into it, which is partly the case during my visit. Although these beaches are about 5 kilometers from Albufeira, they are far more spectacular than those near the town itself. If you visit the town, it is definitely worth coming here as well. It is not only perfect for a day at the beach, but also for walking along the cliffs and discovering the small hidden coves. While most people choose the large beaches of the town, these are truly still 2 hidden gems. A little further along the coastline, I come across a place where faith and the raw power of the ocean meet, Nossa Senhora de Rocha. On this narrow headland, about 130 meters long and rising 35 meters above sea level, stands a small white chapel. The chapel is located within the walls of a former fort that was built here in the 16th century to protect the coastline from the Moors. During the Great Earthquake of 1755, the structure was destroyed, but the chapel remained standing. It is remarkable to think that the entire complex was reduced to ruins, while this long, narrow rock managed to survive the earthquake. Beneath the chapel, a tunnel has been carved out to connect the 2 beaches on either side. Here, on this narrow headland, history, faith, and the untamed power of nature come together beautifully. In the afternoon, I leave the coast behind and drive deep into the inland. Here lies the town of Silves, which was once the most powerful capital of the Moorish kingdom. It was mainly known as a city of poets and scholars, and today it is above all a place of tranquility, far away from the busy tourist coastline. The town is located along the Rio Arade, where you will find the Ponte Romana. Although the name suggests it is a Roman bridge, it most likely dates back to the 15th century and may have been built on the foundations of an older Roman crossing. At the time, Silves was situated at an important junction of Roman roads, and Roman concrete was discovered by archaeologists near the bridge. Once in the old town, you will see historic structures appearing here as well, including the main city gate of the Moorish fortress. Walking through this gate truly feels like stepping back 1,000 years in time. Next to the city gate, you will find the town hall, a much more recent building, but with its elegant neoclassical appearance, it is certainly worth stepping inside. The central hall is open to visitors, featuring a skylight in the roof and beautiful blue tiles along the walls. From the city gate, I climb up to the higher parts of the town, where the cathedral stands, one of the most important religious monuments of the Algarve. It was built between the 13th and 15th centuries on the site where the great Moorish mosque once stood. It is constructed from the same red sandstone used for the castle and the city walls. This building was also heavily damaged during the Great Earthquake, and the Baroque elements you see today are the result of its reconstruction. Right next to the cathedral, you will find the entrance to the castle. It was built by the Moors between the 8th and 13th centuries, likely on foundations dating back to Roman times. In front of the entrance stands the statue of King Sancho I, who captured the castle for the first time in 1189 after a bloody siege, although it was not until 1242 that it definitively came into Portuguese hands. The castle walls can be walked along their entire length, which makes a visit even more special. The courtyard is mainly laid out as a park, with a small restaurant and remarkable underground water reservoirs. This enormous reservoir was once essential for survival. It was so large that it could hold enough water for the entire town to live on for a year. Today, it mainly serves as an exhibition space about the wildlife found in the Algarve. The Castle of Silves is more than a fortress. It is the red soul of the Algarve, standing watch over the valley for more than 1,000 years. Via the old city walls, which can still be seen in several places around the center, I walk back to the car and head towards my hotel in the slightly more southern town of Lagoa. By now, the sun has set, and I take a short walk through the historic center, which is beautifully illuminated. The name of this town literally comes from the word lagoon, as in the early days there was a shallow lake or marsh here. Like Silves, the town was heavily affected by the earthquake of 1755, and most of what you see today dates from the reconstruction in the 18th century. And of course, I start the next day with a calm morning walk through the town. Today, another long coastal hike is on the program, which I head to early in the morning. I begin this walk not far from the chapel where I left the coastline yesterday, at Praia de Albandeira. This small bay is known for its beautiful natural rock arch, which can be seen up close from the cliffs. Although most people view the cliffs and stunning rock formations from land, it is also possible to explore them by boat or canoe. The route I follow is about 10 kilometers in total and leads to the Benagil Cave. Because many tourists and visitors park closer to the final destination, the first part of this beautiful route is very quiet. Along the way, you are treated to breathtaking views of the coastline and beaches that are sometimes difficult for visitors to reach. This gives our winged friends the opportunity to enjoy these shores in peace. Just before I reach the large parking area halfway along the route, I descend from the cliffs to the beach of Praia da Marinha. Because it is still early, I am almost alone on this beach, which is considered one of the most beautiful in the world, and it truly lives up to that reputation. The golden limestone in the most remarkable formations, the sandy beach, and the blue sea perfectly capture the essence of the Algarve. At the end of the beach lies the Olhos de Boneca, the most famous rock arch forming the shape of the letter M. Shaped by millions of years of erosion, this is truly a unique place to stand, especially as I have it entirely to myself in this overwhelming landscape. Surrounded by towering cliffs, this place makes you feel small and reminds me of the incredible places I am able to visit. I then walk back calmly along the beach and continue the cliff hike. From this point, the Seven Hanging Valleys Trail begins, a route that has been named one of the most beautiful hiking trails in Europe. The name of this hike comes from the past, when 7 small rivers flowed into the ocean here. Because the coastline eroded more quickly under the force of the sea than the riverbeds, these were left, as it were, suspended above sea level. From the top of the cliffs, you also have an incredible view of the large rock arches I visited earlier, but if you can, I would definitely recommend seeing them from the beach as well. From these arches, it is still a few kilometers to the final destination of my route, the Benagil Cave. In addition to the arches, you will find several caves carved into the cliffs, of which the Benagil Cave is the most spectacular. From above, you have a beautiful view into the cave, where the water enters through openings on 2 sides and crashes onto a small, hidden beach. The cave is accessible by boat or through an organized tour with a soup or kayak, but it is no longer allowed to step onto the small beach. I therefore choose to admire the cave only from above. This cave and the rugged coastline are truly the reason why the Algarve became world famous, and here, at Algar de Benagil, that spectacle reaches its absolute peak. It is a place where time and the ocean have carved a cathedral out of golden rock. Although the route continues for a while, I decide to skip the final kilometers to the lighthouse and begin the return journey, from where I once again take in this beautiful coastline from a completely different perspective. Once back at the small beach where I started, I take a moment to rest before continuing westward, where I make a short stop at the coastal fort near Portimão. I pass by this large city and continue on to the town of Lagos. In the 15th century, this town was the beating heart of Portuguese maritime power, and Henry the Navigator in particular used it as a base for his expeditions to Africa. The city's wealth is clearly visible in the church Igreja de Santo Antonio. For a small fee, you can enter, where you will find a small museum as well as the richly decorated church itself. This church was also completely destroyed during the earthquake and was rebuilt in 1769 when it received its current Baroque decorations. The wood carvings are almost entirely covered in gold, which was imported from Brazil in the 18th century. You will also find wall paintings and a beautifully decorated ceiling. The center of the town is almost entirely surrounded by the old city walls, which protected the city for centuries from outside attacks. These walls largely date back to the 16th century, when Lagos was the capital of the Algarve. Through the city gates, which are still visible today, travelers, merchants, and residents have entered the city for centuries. At the harbor, you will find a large square named after Henry the Navigator. Although he is honored as a great explorer, the slave trade also dates back to this period. It was on this square that the first covered slave market in Europe was opened, which remains a dark chapter in the city's history. At the mouth of the harbor stands Fort Ponta da Bandeira, the final line of defense of Lagos. It protected the harbor from the end of the 17th century and was crucial to the city. Unfortunately, the fort is closed and not accessible. Inside, there is said to be a beautiful chapel completely covered with 18th century azulejos tiles. I take one last walk through the town and end my day at the Church of St. Sebastian in the north of the old center. From the outside, the church appears quite worn, but inside, there is no sign of that. The origins of this church date back to the 14th century, when a simple chapel once stood here. It is a peaceful and fitting end to my day, and after exploring this beautiful town, I walk to my hotel and prepare for a new day. Lagos is known not only for its history, but also for its stunning nature. On the southern side of the town, you will find Ponta da Piedade, which you can easily reach on foot from the center. Here, you will not find beaches, but a collection of beautiful golden cliffs rising up to 50 meters above the sea. Over the centuries, the waves and wind have carved arches, pillars, and hidden caves into the limestone. On top of the cliffs, boardwalks have been built from which you can admire the scenery. However, for the very best views, you sometimes have to leave the path, as visibility can be limited in certain spots. From the center, the walking route is about 8 kilometers and passes the lighthouse at the southernmost point. This lighthouse was built between 1912 and 1913 on the ruins of an old chapel. Near the lighthouse, you will also find a staircase that takes you about 180 steps down. From this point, which in summer is often used as a dock for boats, you get a stunning view, especially at sunrise, when the light shines over the remarkable rock formations. In addition to yesterday morning's route, this hike is absolutely worth recommending as well. Here, you will find the raw beauty of the limestone in all its rugged forms. Where the lighthouse now casts its light over the sea, it was once the explorers who gazed over the horizon, searching for a path into the unknown. After a final rainbow view from the hotel, I continue my journey westward, as today the west coast is on the program. But before I get there, I make a stop in Benagil, often referred to as the Santorini of Portugal. This former fishing village has retained its authentic charm, and tourism here has remained small-scale. Compared to Lagos, the coastline here is very different, and the cliffs feel more like an amphitheater in which the village is nestled. Not far from the village, on the cliffs, you will find the old Fort São Luís de Almadena, which was built in 1632. Although the fort is partly in ruins, its unusual shape is still clearly visible. It has a polygonal design and was separated from the mainland by a moat. It is always a special experience to walk through ruins like these and to realize that hundreds of years ago they were important structures, essential for the defense of the land and the ocean. After a short visit to this remarkable site, I continue my journey to a second fort that has been better preserved, Fort Sagres. This enormous structure protects a small peninsula that rises high above the ocean with steep cliffs. Here, I truly notice that I have reached the west coast, as the wind is incredibly strong, almost making it impossible to walk. Legend has it that Henry the Navigator established a world-famous naval school here, where cartographers and astronomers gathered. It is said to have been the place where voyages of discovery were planned and caravels were designed, although historians question this story. What is certain is that Henry chose this location as a spiritual and strategic base from which he financed and oversaw expeditions. Because of the strong wind, I decide not to explore the peninsula and drive on to the next stop, Cabo de São Vicente, the westernmost point of the Algarve and also the end of the southern coast. The cliffs here drop about 60 meters straight into the ocean, with a lighthouse on top that shines up to 90 kilometers across the water. It was built in 1846 on the foundations of an old monastery. Here as well, it is almost impossible to walk due to the wind. But it is not only the wind that is extreme, the waves are also incredibly high, making the view even more spectacular. It certainly sets the tone for the rest of the journey along the west coast. From Praia do Amado, I drive further along the west coast, where several wooden boardwalks provide access to the cliffs. This coastline is often referred to as a surfer's paradise because of the high waves that are frequently found here, and today is no exception. Although I would probably not make it out of the rough waters alive, there are still daredevils taking on the sea with their surfboards. From the boardwalks, you get an incredible view of the rocky coastline, where waves crash against the cliffs and are blown dozens of meters into the air. Here, you truly realize how wild the ocean is and how small you are as a human being. At the end of this route lies Bordeira Beach, an enormous stretch of sand that also features a lagoon formed by the river flowing into the sea. This west coast is part of the Costa Vicentina, a protected natural park. As a result, you will find hardly any high-rise buildings here, and the beaches have retained their rugged character. Locally, this area is often referred to as the Wild West Coast, which is easy to understand given the high waves and extremely strong winds. After getting thoroughly windblown, I seek some shelter on the edge of this natural park in the town of Algesur. It consists of two parts: the old town, built against the hillside with a castle rising above it, and the new town, which was constructed in the fertile valley with a more structured street layout after the devastating earthquake. I only visit the old part, where I climb through winding streets to the remains of the castle. This castle feels very different from the forts I visited earlier that day. It was built in the 10th century by the Moors and has a polygonal shape, as they carefully followed the contours of the hill to optimize its defense, unlike the Christian castles of that time. The small river running through the town was much wider and deeper in the Middle Ages than it is today. Back then, this was truly a harbor fortress, where ships sailed inland from the ocean to the foot of the castle hill. Over the centuries, the silting up of the river eventually led to the economic decline of the castle's power. For one final time, I head back to the coast, to the nearby fort of Arafana, where I quietly watch the sunset and bring the day to an end. The next morning, I begin with a final stop along the coastline at the small village of Odaseshe. The river that flows past this village forms the natural border between the Algarve and the Alentejo region. The Seshe River curves widely around the beach before flowing into the Atlantic Ocean. From the village, which consists of many white houses built against the hillside, you have a beautiful view over the beach and the rugged sea. And because it is still early in the morning, it is very quiet in the village and on the beach, with only a handful of people enjoying this beautifully located hidden spot. Then, it is time for me to leave the ocean behind and head truly into the interior. Not far from the coastline, as the sound of the sea fades away, everything gives way to the quiet Cerro. Among the green hills, you find a completely different Algarve, where time seems to have stood still. With buildings that have been abandoned for decades and cows peacefully grazing in the fields between the rolling hills, this is a very different side of the Algarve. It feels as though time has nearly stopped here, and you will hardly find any tourists. I travel through this beautiful landscape, occasionally passing through small villages such as Marmalet, which appear as white oases within the green hills. On my route from this village to the highest point, I pass Cascada do Chilrao, where I make a short stop to rest, and then I visit an old mill a few kilometers further on. This mill is located in Parque do Barranco dos Pisões, one of the most serene places in the Serra de Monchique. The watermill here was once used to process and strengthen wool. Later, it was adapted to grind grain for the local population, showing the resilience and ingenuity of the people, who made use of the small stream for whatever they needed. In the park, there is also a remarkable natural monument, a gigantic plane tree that is more than 150 years old. While it is very quiet here now, on warmer days the local population gathers at this green picnic area, with the old tree forming a natural canopy. And then it is time for the highlight of my journey through the Algarve, the highest point. Fóia, at 902 meters, is the highest point in the Algarve, offering a wide panoramic view over large parts of the region. From here, I can see almost the entire route I have traveled, as well as the towns along the coastline that I passed earlier. But Fóia is more than just a viewpoint. Due to its dominant height, the summit serves as a strategic vantage point for the region. Among the ancient granite rocks, military radar stations and a forest of communication towers rise up, providing the area with essential information and connections day and night. From here, I descend again and visit the village of Monchique, which is located at the foot of this highest peak. While the coast thrives on tourism, life here still truly depends on what the land provides. From the viewpoint beneath the verandas, you already get a beautiful impression of the village, and as you walk further in, you can see the liveliness around the central square. What also stands out is the ruin of the former monastery, rising high above the village among the trees. I decide to take on the climb and go up for a closer look. The first part takes me through narrow, winding streets with picturesque houses and the central church, after which the climb upward begins. Along the way, you also see something the Algarve is well known for: cork production. The lower sections of the cork oak trees have been stripped to harvest the cork for various uses. Throughout the region, you will find shops selling all kinds of cork products, from hats to bags. Then the old monastery comes into view, and you can truly see the state of decay of the structure. It was built in 1631 by Pero da Silva as an act of gratitude after surviving a storm at sea. Today, it is mainly a place slowly being reclaimed by nature, and of course one that offers a beautiful view over the village from above. Through the narrow streets, I walk back to the starting point, where I pick up the car and continue further inland. The next stop is near the small village of Albufeira, where you can start a relatively new walk from the cemetery through the Devil's Gorge. In 2023, a boardwalk was built through this gorge to make the once impassable terrain accessible to hikers. At the bottom of the gorge, there is a small stream with crystal clear water. A suspension bridge of about 50 meters allows you to cross it, after which the climb up the opposite hillside begins. This consists entirely of stairs, with around 500 steps in total. From this side as well, you get a good view of the route, which is only about 1 kilometer long. Of course, it is part of a longer trail that continues to the ruins of an Islamic castle, but I skip that section and begin the same descent and climb back. This type of hiking route is not very common in this region, but it is a great way to make the inland more attractive to visitors. That is also evident, as by the end of the afternoon, quite a few people have come to enjoy the beautiful nature here. In the Algarve, you will also find several reservoirs among the hills that have been built in more recent times. Not far from Albufeira lies the Barragem de Odaluca, which has become essential for water management in the region. The dam holding back this vast lake was completed in 2009 and forms the largest reservoir in the Algarve. It can hold as much as 157 million cubic meters of water. Although it was necessary for the water supply, its construction was controversial due to its impact on nature, particularly on species such as the Iberian lynx and the Benelli's eagle that live here. By now, the lake has blended into the landscape and become part of the natural surroundings. I end the day with an evening walk through the village of São Bartolomeu de Messines. This small village has around 4,000 inhabitants and is built around a 16th century church. It is best known as the birthplace of João de Deus, one of Portugal's most famous poets. Walking through the narrow streets of the old center is a fitting end to the day. The final full day has arrived in the beautiful Algarve, and I continue my journey through the inland. About 12 kilometers further, I arrive in the village of Alta, which is considered the most authentic village in the Algarve, and there are some truly remarkable things to be found here. I begin on the southern side, where you will find what is perhaps the most beautiful waterfall in this region, Queda do Vigário. Via a long staircase, I descend to the banks of the stream, where the 24-meter-high waterfall dominates the landscape. Early in the morning, I have the place entirely to myself, although in this park-like setting, recreation is clearly the main focus of the area. I continue into the village, where at the edge of the center there is a small, covered market hall that is still used to sell local goods. From the central square, I walk further through the narrow streets. Between the buildings, my eye is drawn to the hill beside the village, where a massive national flag can be seen on the slope. It symbolizes the local pride in this part of the inland, an area that is sometimes overlooked by the large flows of tourists along the coast. The most remarkable feature is found at the northern side of the village, where natural springs create one of the most idyllic spots in the entire Algarve. It is a place where nature and village life have come together for centuries around the waters of the Alta River. The area is designed like a park, with water flowing from the spring through small channels where people can also swim. In the past, this was the village laundry, where women would gather to wash clothes. It is an oasis where time seems to stand still, and where the crystal-clear spring water reminds you of the true richness of the inland. It is special to see the source up close and to watch the water emerge directly from the ground. If you want to discover the true Algarve, a visit to this village is an absolute must. I continue driving through this beautiful landscape where, apart from a few small villages, there is very little besides the stunning nature. The inland is truly a place you do not just pass through, but one you fully take in. The scent of wild herbs, the rustling of the cork oaks, and above all, the deep sense of calm that the landscape has radiated for centuries make it clear that you should leave the coast behind and not just judge the book by its cover, because within it, you find yourself in a completely different world. After driving about 80 kilometers through this remarkable scenery, I arrive in the village of Alcutim. This is almost the northeasternmost point of the region and is separated from neighboring Spain by the Guadiana River. From the village, you have a beautiful view of the nearby white Spanish town, with its castle rising above it. Alcutim itself also has a small castle dating back to the 14th century, built to guard the river. Unfortunately, it is closed during the hours I visit, so I continue into the old center. Near the river, by the square, stands the village church, whose main entrance with Corinthian columns was built between 1538 and 1554. An important historical event associated with this village is the Peace of Alcutim. In 1371, the Portuguese King Fernando I and the Castilian King Enrique II met in the middle of the Guadiana River on a ship between Alcutim and Sanlúcar, where they signed the treaty that brought an end to the bloody war. I follow the river downstream, and along the way I also come across the ruins of an old Moorish castle on top of a hill, as well as traces from Roman times. Along the banks of this river, the Romans were active as well, and the foundations of a villa and a church that once stood here are still visible if you take a short stop. The Guadiana Valley feels very different from both the inland and the coastline. The further south I travel, the more the landscape changes. The rugged hills near Alcutim gradually give way to an open horizon, where the river eventually flows into the ocean in a wide delta. At this delta lies the historic stronghold of Castro Maritime, which guards the entrance to the Algarve and the border with Spain. Unlike Alcutim, where the river forms the main division between the two countries, this town reflects the grandeur of its military past. I begin at the old castle, located on a hill within the town. Originally, it was a Moorish fort, but after the Christian reconquest, it became the first official seat of the Order of Christ, the successors of the Knights Templar in Portugal. It dates back to the 13th century, and inside you will find several structures, including the oldest part of the castle, a square fortress with 4 towers at its corners. Although much of the complex lies in ruins, this section has remained well preserved, as have the surrounding walls, which you can walk along. They offer a beautiful view of both the complex and the surrounding landscape. Within the walls, you will also find the remains of the old Church of Santiago, whose original parts likely date back to the 16th century, although the current structure was rebuilt after the Great Earthquake in the 18th century. The village has more to offer than just this castle. On the hill on the opposite side, a more modern fortress was built in the 17th century when tensions with Spain rose again. The medieval castle was no longer capable of withstanding modern artillery and cannons, which led to the construction of Fort São Sebastião. This new fort was built with thick, sloping walls in a star shape, following the so-called Vauban style. The old and new fortifications were connected by walls that also enclosed the village, providing direct protection against attacks. It is fascinating to see how these two forts from different periods still dominate the landscape around the town, allowing you to witness its history from afar. I continue descending toward the coast until I arrive in the town of Vila Real de Santo Antonio, where I take a final evening walk as the sun sets. This is a town unlike any other, with a unique character. It was built in 1774 in record time, with a strict geometric street pattern and a remarkable location at the mouth of the Guadiana River. After the earthquake, it became a model of order and modernity, with a wide boulevard and a large central square that forms the heart of the town. This distinctive place is a fitting end to my final evening in the Algarve. And then my final day has truly arrived, a day on which I end where I began, along the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. From my hotel in Montegordo, I start the last route, which ends at the airport. Before that, I make a stop in Castelo Velha, a small fortified village with just a few houses and a beautiful view over Praia de Castelo Velha. This is considered one of the hidden gems of the Algarve's beaches. Especially when the water in the lagoons is low, this vast beach is easily accessible. A little further west lies the town of Tavira, located on the banks of the Gilao River. This town is a beautiful blend of Roman, Moorish, and Christian influences, which makes it very diverse. In the center of the town stands the Moorish Castle, of which the remaining parts mainly date from between the 8th and 13th centuries. Legend has it that the daughter of the Moorish governor still wanders through the ruins as an enchanted Moorish maiden, waiting for a prince who will reconquer the city. The ruins are freely accessible, and inside you will find a beautiful garden overlooking the complex. The towers, of course, offer some of the best views over the town. Next to the castle is the Igreja de Santa Maria do Castelo, one of the most important churches in Tavira. It was built in the 13th century on the site where the largest mosque of the town once stood, which was common practice after the Christian reconquest. Inside the church, you will find a mix of styles, but the most remarkable features are the 18th century azulejos tiles depicting biblical scenes. The tower can also be visited, and from there you get a completely different perspective of the castle, which is definitely worth the climb. Along the riverbanks, you will find the main square, where the Ponte Romana is also located. Although the foundations of this bridge date back to Roman times, it only acquired its current appearance in the 17th century and now serves as a pedestrian bridge connecting both parts of the town. It is a town that is certainly worth visiting, with a pure charm where its long history is still tangible. Walking through the narrow, winding streets, I take it all in and prepare for the final stop of the day, the capital Faro. Although the weather worsens slightly in the final hours and a few rain showers pass over the city, I begin inside the city's cathedral. Originally, a Roman temple stood on this site, which was later converted into a Moorish mosque. After the Reconquest, it too was demolished and replaced by a church in the year 1251. Inside, you will find beautifully gilded wood carvings, impressive 17th century tile panels, and a Baroque organ that serves as the cathedral's historical centerpiece. The tower can also be climbed, and it is one of the few original parts that has survived the fires and earthquakes over the centuries. From the top, you have a stunning view over the city and the lagoons of the Ria Formosa. Since the 16th century, this has been the official cathedral of the Diocese of the Algarve. Before that, the city of Silves was the seat of the bishop. Directly opposite the cathedral, you will find the episcopal palace. The move to Faro took place because the city had become economically more important at the time, due to trade through its harbor. and it was also easier to defend and govern as Portugal became increasingly oriented toward the ocean. The palace is one of the most stately buildings in the city, and the current structure dates from the 17th and 18th centuries. Although relatively modest in its layout, the walls are covered with beautiful 18th century tiles in the Rococo style, depicting not only religious scenes, but also landscapes and allegories. Through the old city walls, which still surround parts of the city, I leave the historic center and head toward one of the most macabre places to be found. Igreja do Carmo is a church located just outside the old center and was built in the 18th century. It is known as the Golden Church, as its interior is almost entirely gilded, giving it a remarkable appearance. Once inside, you have access to several spaces, including the choir at the back of the church, as well as the bone chapel, which can be reached through the garden. This chapel, dating from 1816, is entirely lined with the skulls and bones of more than 1,000 monks. Above the entrance is the message, "Stop here and consider that you too will end up in this state," emphasizing the transience of life. The geometric patterns in which the bones and skulls are arranged are both fascinating and macabre. While I previously visited the much larger bone chapel in Évora, this one is smaller, but no less striking to experience. It is here that I conclude my journey through Portugal, a journey from the beautiful capital to the fairy tale-like Sintra, the unique city of Évora, and this wonderful finale in the Algarve. This region is truly much more than just its well-known coastline with tourist resorts and beaches. When you step off the beaten path, you discover the real Algarve, a place of great tranquility, rich nature, and a character entirely of its own. I hope you enjoyed this video as well. If you did, do not forget to like and subscribe to my channel so you will not miss my future travels. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.